All right, welcome to the 8+ Secrets to Become a College Soccer Player. This is presented by myself, Coach Kyle of Sign Out Sports. We are known as North America's #1 soccer skills trainers. So I'm very excited to be giving you this presentation on how to become a college soccer player. So to start with the presentation, the first thing I want to talk about is a little bit about myself to give you a little bit of background of who I am, what I do, and what I've been getting into. So I am, and Sign Out Sports in general, is a Hummel sportswear partner. As you can see in the picture, we're sponsored by an awesome company called Hummel, and we work with them and we have an agreement with them. So it's been a really unique experience with us, for them, and with us. So we're enjoying that a lot. A little bit about my playing career. I played at multiple levels, from normal competitive all the way up to the development academy. I actually played for McLean Development Academy and played for St. Louis University. Played there for 4 years. Really only played roughly about 25 games, give or take, during my 4 years. A lot of injuries. And then fortunately, I was able to get a chance to go overseas and play in France for a little while, not too long. Got to play in the Coupe de France, which was an awesome experience. And just kind of got the opportunity to see what it was like to play in another country as an adult. I did it multiple times as a child, and it was a good experience. But this one really gave me an eye-opening thing of what the biggest difference is between youth and being an adult and playing at that level. So it was unique. In terms of what I do now, obviously I am and work for Sign Out Sports. And about myself in general, I have a D license from the United States Soccer Federation. I have a B license from the United States Futsal Federation. I have a level 1 in the English FA, Talent Identification and Player Psychology. And I have worked with lots and lots of players. Right now I've put over 30 players into ECNL and DA programs. 7 players I've worked with, I've put into colleges, and I've worked with actually more players than that. Those are just players I've gotten into college soccer. And there's 8 players that I've worked with that have played overseas internationally. So my CV resume is always growing, and I'm really excited to see where it kind of takes on from here. So that's a little bit about myself. Now, I want you guys to wait till the end, and just because you finish this video, I'm going to give you a free gift. I'm going to give you an absolutely amazing special offer on college recruiting, and it's my toolkit. So you're going to see it when you get to the end. And of course, just by going through this presentation, you're going to learn more secrets, more tips, more bonuses about college soccer and the recruiting process. So let's now talk about the topics we're going to go through, and trust me, there's going to be a lot more bonuses outside of this, so make sure you pay attention, right? So obviously you can see in this list here, we're going to talk about the importance of doing well in school, how you need to improve on and off the field, of course, what you need to accomplish during your 4 years in high school, things like how to select a school, what segments to consider, obviously the importance of communication, and not just communication, but good communication with college coaches, and then looking at also what these coaches want from players. What kind of attributes are they looking for? Grade point averages, things like that. And now, of course, where do they recruit? Where are coaches recruiting their players? And then things like, if you're 18 or not and you're out of high school, what's your next step? We talk about that. And then, of course, there's a lot more bonus things, and there's more than this here, but there's things like scholarships, how we're selecting the schools, how to contact coaches, importance of film, things like that. So there's a lot of good material in here. So just a quick disclosure, don't need to go into this too much. Obviously, the college recruiting process changes all the time, so things might have changed and altered by the presentation or by the time of you watching this presentation. So this is more of like a guideline to give you the idea, the resources, the knowledge to kind of understand and get a better idea of how the recruiting process works. So just keep that in mind, and make sure, of course, this is our presentation. This may not be reproduced, duplicated, or distributed without our written permission. So appreciate that, and let's get started. So topic 1, right? The importance of doing well in school. So you may or may not know this, and it's pretty interesting. NCAA, NAIA, and many other college divisions have specific grade and test requirements just to be eligible to compete. So, for example, with the NCAA, to pass through their clearinghouse, and this is just to be eligible to play, you need to have a 2.0 and a certain test score. So if you don't have that 2.0, you're out of luck. You're not playing NCAA division. You're not playing NCAA soccer, period. So You need to make sure your grades are up. Now, of course, there's a second twist to this. Schools can have their own grade requirements. So if you don't meet those requirements, a school may not accept you. Or guess what? You can even do this. If you have lower grades, the school maybe still can accept you, but you might not get the scholarships that you're looking for because of your grade point average. So obviously, leading into this, academic success is vital. So the higher the GPA, the better opportunity you have of getting additional scholarship money, potentially academically, of course, maybe some grants, and other fees can be waived. So, you could have, 100, you could have a 4.0 in whatever thing, just for example, 4.0, maybe they knock off a couple $1,000 just because you have that grade point average. Schools are always looking to have the best students. So if you have a high grade point average, the better chance you have of getting more money. So definitely keep that and think about that as you're focusing on your schoolwork. So now moving into topic 2, right? Improve on and off the field. So what I mean by this is you have to be constantly looking for ways to improve your soccer performance. Obviously, some of the best ways to do that is by training. Make sure you're training the right way. So are you focusing on your technique, your tactical ability, your physical ability, and your cognitive, mental abilities, right? College coaches want players who are going to work extremely hard. Of course, in the classroom and inside team practices and outside of team practice. So like me individually, I would go out when we didn't have practice on a day off at college, and I would go train. Maybe get a group of players to come with or whatever, whether it was on my own or not. But they're looking for those type of individuals who take initiative. They're looking for players that will stand out and do extra work when nobody else is watching. So, of course, that means they're expecting a certain level of performance. You have to be extremely, extremely committed to play college soccer. It's a grueling season, first and foremost, but then, of course, having the transition from, say, club soccer, high school, or wherever you're coming from into college is a very demanding and tough task. So it's not easy. Now, I would also recommend at U14 and older, right? You should probably start training 4 times a week. So if you're U14, you're probably 8th grade, 7th grade, whatever. But by the time you're in high school, if you're not training 4 times a week, right, it's going to really severely limit you. And that's just team training, really. I mean, even if it was 2-3 sessions a week, but then you did extra training on your own or whatever, maybe you're going out and playing on the street because that's a great way to get better, or doing private training or whatever the circumstances, you need to be doing extra training. Then, of course, right, this is a big key, and a lot of people don't think about this, especially as you get to the age where college recruiting happens. You need to try and play at the highest level possible. So, can you play in the Development Academy? Can you play in the ECNL League, right? Those are the highest levels, so to speak, right? It also depends on the area you're in and whatever, but it's just, you want to play at the highest level possible because it will increase your chances of being recognized. And that's going to be one of the next topics we talk about is exposure. So you have to be recognized. You need to play at the highest level possible. Now, a lot of players don't do this, especially in this country, but you need to watch professional games. These are the, arguably best players in the world, whatever league you're watching or whatever game you're watching. Now, I want you to be mindful of this. Do not just follow the ball. Watch players that are playing in your specific position and think about the things that they're working on, the things that they're implementing or doing. If they're a number 10, are they finding those little pockets to receive the ball in dangerous positions behind the midfielder's defensive block? Can they get the ball in those pockets like an Ozil, right? I highly recommend Ozil for this. Finding those pockets of space, turning, and being able to play a through pass from the striker, maybe driving at the defenders, or even switching the point of attack. And those are little minor details that, again, you can learn from watching the best players play. And that's a vital, vital resource. You need to be watching games and learning how to improve from watching the best players in the world. So, let's talk about a bonus topic. First one, high school soccer versus club soccer. Not everybody knows these things, so we're going to try and summarize them for you. And it's pretty interesting because if you look at any other sport or American sport, basketball, or I should say more football, definitely American football, maybe basketball, maybe baseball. I don't know too much about American sports, so I can't comment, but I can tell you about American football. A lot of them go to high school games. In soccer, college coaches, especially higher level coaches, ones that play or coach at the big schools, almost never go to high school games. You might get some to go to like state playoffs, but there's such a difference of level between players within the same high school that college coaches don't find it as a good variable to see players in, because you could be, playing for a low-level high school and be the best player, but how do you deal when everybody else around you is very good? And so that's the challenge with high school. There's not a lot of top talent playing in high school. There's a few high schools that are. Maybe maybe college coaches are going there, but a lot of them, and most of them, are going to club showcase events, DA events, tournaments, things like that, where they're looking for players. So, right, just told you here, college showcase tournaments, DA showcases, ECNL players, national tournaments. These are where they're going. And again, because the talent pool is going to be high, there's going to be more players that are better. So you need to make sure that you're doing that. And of course, if you can get a private trainer or somebody to help work with you to work on aspects of your game that need to be refined, weaknesses, maybe it's a strength, whatever it is, you need to always be improving. So here's another bonus topic for you. Networking, right? You must network. I had a college professor who she said this quote to us here, and it's very simple. It's about who you know to get the job. It's about what you know to keep it. So again, it's about who you know to get the job. It's about what you know to keep it. You just need to get your foot through the door. You know somebody, you've met somebody that gets you in. It's then up to you to work and do whatever you need to do to keep that job. Can you keep that position? Or are you going to fizzle out, right? Those are the things you need to be mindful of. So make sure you're speaking with your high school coaches, your club coaches, whoever your individual coaches, private trainers, whatever you're doing. Try and gain as much insight from them as possible about the college recruiting industry, because it's a lot more work than you think, and you're going to find out here shortly. And you may get an opportunity because of someone you know. You never know who's watching, who's scouting. Maybe your high school coach knows a Division I school and they need your position. And this is something we're going to talk about, but it's just coming down to who do you know. But if you don't ever make those connections, you don't talk about those things, people won't be able to help you. So you need to make sure that you're out communicating with these coaches, trying to find ways to network. And maybe they have recommendations. Maybe they can mentor you. Maybe they can help you with the process. Because think about it. Do your parents know about the college recruiting process? And I can tell you my parents didn't. And I started it way, way too late. And you're going to find out here shortly when you should start. But those things can be detrimental to you reaching the levels that you want to in college soccer. And you have to always be ahead of the game. So make sure you take and pay attention to those things. So here's your third bonus topic, right? Exposure. I kind of talked about it earlier, but honestly, exposure is the most important thing to discovering your opportunity. And this is going to sound a little crazy, but you could be, and it's a little hyped, right? But you could be the best player in the world, but if you don't ever get showcased, you're not scouted, you're not seen, you're not going to be playing at the next level. I promise you that. It doesn't matter who you are. So you need to get game film, get a highlight video, and share it with these coaches that you reach out to. And I'm going to show you how to do that here shortly. But you need to be able to do that if you're going to be scouted, right? You need to go to these college showcase tournaments. You need to be seen. If you play for a DA, you go to those tournaments. Make sure you go. You have to get your name out there, because the key is, or the thing to remember, is that college coaches do not know who you are. And guess what? There are thousands of soccer players trying to get college scholarships, trying to get on a team. The same team that you're trying to get on, by the way. So if you're not out there getting looked at, not getting exposure, you're not playing. You have to contact and you have to show coaches. Now, I want to give you this, right? At St. Leo, my coach at the time, he had a board just for recruiting. And he had 4 years of prospects that he was evaluating, and names were being taken off, new names were being added. But again, that's 4 years in advance, up to 4 years that he's looking at players, and the process and the players are evolving through that recruiting door. So if you're not, actively pursuing it and not being exposed, you're not going to play. I can promise you that. So you have to make sure you're going to those events and getting scouted, talking to coaches. And again, I'm going to tell you how to do those things, but those are things you need to be mindful of. So let's move into topic 3, right? What should you accomplish during your 4 years of high school? So we're going to start with 9th grade, right? And this kind of really sets the tone. And I say that because if you don't do the things now and take these kind of steps here, you're going to struggle moving beyond that. And these are things that I did not do, and I struggled with the college recruiting process. So Obviously, or maybe it's not obvious, you need to develop a big list of schools, of places that you think you're interested in, because I promise you, you're going to change your mind. You're going to find a new school. You're going to take a school off. So you need to have big schools, right? And it could even be schools that maybe aren't interested in you. Well, are you going to try and go there still? Maybe not, right? Especially if you want to play. If they don't need you or they don't want you, what's the point of even having them on your list anymore? So those are things to be mindful of, right? And again, these should be schools that you've an interest in. I would highly recommend, when you're making this list, put down key information. Things like what are their GPA requirements? Where do they play? What level? Are they NCAA Division I? Are they NAIA? Information about the team. How have they been doing? Who are the coaches? If you can find any video and just kind of learn about them, see where they've coached at, what their style is. Does it fit what you want to try and do? Of course, like recent results. Have they won conferences? Have they made it to for example, NCAA final? Or where are they standing? And those are key things. Because guess what? When you start talking to coaches, those are good things to ask. So you need to have that information. And of course, if you can get this stuff down, you're going to be organized, and it's very, very important to remain organized while you're doing this. I would also highly recommend looking to join like clubs. Maybe you get into, if you speak another language, you can join, say, French Honor Society or something like that. Schools value things like that. If you can get into after-school programs or clubs, activities, things like that, they look good on college applications and they can help with you being accepted. So take that into consideration. At this point, really, a lot of the recruiting process in ninth grade is a lot focused on emails. And there are specific rules about coaches responding to you, especially from phone calls and things like that. So you have to be mindful of those things. So a lot of the ways you're going to get communication is email. So make sure you're aware of those steps that are happening. Right? So now we're talking about 10th grade here. So this is really crucial to starting to get your name out. So people, these coaches, can recognize who you are, right? So you need to make sure that you're continuing to look for more schools. You need to constantly try and be in contact with these schools. Email is a good way, again, at this age. You can even maybe, try a phone call. But remember, or at this point, they're not allowed to call you. So you have to, at least at the time of this presentation, you have to be mindful of those things. If they call, or I shouldn't say that, if you call, they may or not be able to talk to you yet. And so it just falls on timing. So you have to be mindful of those things. So make sure you're emailing, because they can respond to your emails at this point for sure. And it's a constant process of trying to be able to build the reputation and getting yourself out there. And so you're going to get a lot of schools that will send generic information to you, especially if you go to tournaments and things like that. They're going to try and get a little bit of information. It's a good time before any major event that you go to, a tournament, showcase, whatever, contact the coach. Send him an email, maybe try and drop him a call and say, hey, look, I'm playing at this so-and-so tournament, give him enough advance, at least a month, and say, hey, look, I'm at this tournament over this weekend. Here's my schedule. Can you come watch me play? They might not even respond to you, but they could still show up at your game. So you have to be mindful of, you don't know who is always watching. So ultimately, the goal is to become a potential recruit, because you want to get on their whiteboard that says, hey, I'm seriously considering you, and they might not say anything to you yet, but you have to try and remain in contact with them. Okay, so now talking about 11th grade, right? So this is really focused on communication and trying to attend events, right? So again, try and find ways to increase your academic progression. See if you can take AP, IB. If you can do it earlier, great. Dual enrollment courses, things like that to give you more credits. This is a great time to start looking at schools and literally going to the schools for unofficial visits, seeing the campuses, seeing the field, the extra activities, seeing the facilities. See if it would be a good fit for you. You need to have that information. So maybe you like bigger schools, maybe you like smaller schools. I thought personally I would really like a bigger school during my junior year, but by the time my senior year came around, I realized that for me, I would get in a lot of trouble through bigger schools. Like I would do potentially the wrong things, maybe miss classes or things like that, because there's such a bigger window. There's more kids, there's more students, there's other things happening. So I ended up going to a smaller school, which I think was a better fit for me personally. So those are things you have to consider. Is it a bigger, smaller school? Do you want to be close to home? You want to be far away? Those are decisions that you're going to have to evaluate, and taking these trips can help you make those decisions. Yeah, definitely, if you can, attend college night. I know a lot of schools, high schools, do this. Usually they're in your local area. Maybe they're at your school, but try and go to them because you can meet people that are active at the school or former alumni, things like that you can now speak to and gain some insight about the school. It's always about taking in information. And definitely by your 11th grade, you need to be taking your SAT and potentially the ACT depending on how you score. So those are things to consider as well. So by 12th grade, right, this is your selection year. Some people may get lucky and get selected by, their junior year, but this is time. So if you need to, take your SAT or ACT again. Really get those letters of recommendation and done by your teachers. These change sometimes. Like I had to get 2 by the time I was done with the recruiting process, or during my recruiting process, I had to get 2. So those are things to consider. Make sure you have your list of schools really finalized. You should have maybe 10 or so at this point if you haven't really locked into a school yet, or you haven't signed or anything like that, verbally committed. But you may want to be open to other schools because I don't want to say random school, but a school could reach out to you because they saw you at an event and say, hey, I really like you. I want to offer you this or whatever, right? So yes, you might have your heart set on one school or your mindset, but be open because that one school you may want to go to may not work out. And it's more difficult than you think to go to that one school that you want to. But those are things to be mindful of. So continue filling out or starting the admissions application process. This can take some time. There's essays, there's questionnaires, things you got to fill out. They take time, so you need to make sure that you're doing those. Definitely, if you haven't done this yet, you need to, but talk with your parents or talk with whoever is helping you with this situation financially. What do they recommend? Should you take a loan? Can they help you pay for the whole thing? Or how is that process going to happen? Because you have to assume, I would take this into consideration, at least consider this. What if you get zero money from whatever school you want to go to? Can you afford it, right? That would be a realistic thing that I would evaluate because that may affect, should I consider this school? Because if the school costs $50,000, for example, per year, and you don't have those financial resources, is it worthwhile to take a loan? I have plenty of friends that have lots of debt from student loans, and that will take a long time to pay off. You need to think about your future self, right? Or do you go to a school that doesn't cost as much, and maybe you don't get a scholarship? Maybe you do, but those are things to consider in terms of reaching the college process. So definitely take consideration to that. Be aware of deadlines, and I can't stress this enough. Deadlines play a major role. You may miss an application, and you might miss a chance to go to your school because you missed a deadline, and you can't do that. So make sure you're up to date on all of those. Now, a general topic or bonus topic, general tips, right? You can take your SAT, ACT more than once, and that'll happen. I mean, I took mine twice, so don't be afraid of that. Don't be afraid to contact coaches frequently, college coaches. You can do it at least once a month. I would maybe even consider doing it twice a month, right? Maybe once every 2 weeks. That way you're at least reminding them who you are, keeping them fresh in your memory. But you need to make sure that you are in contact, because if you don't, they're going to replace you with somebody else or find somebody else, and you don't want that to happen. So you have to make sure that you're actively pursuing the schools. Of course, make sure you do the research on the team, the school, the coaches. Do you think it'll be a good fit for you? So make sure you have that. And if you're going into conversation with them on a phone, email, potentially text, I highly recommend congratulating them on recent performances or results. So if they just came out and they played their biggest rival and they won 1-0, give them a congratulations. Say, Coach, you know what? Or say, hey, Coach, I heard about your game last night. I was able to watch a little bit, whatever. I saw you won 1-0. That's awesome. Congratulations. I bet you guys deserved it. Whatever it is. You need to make sure that you're giving them those, I want to say cookies, giving them those good feels that you're paying attention to the things that are happening in their program, and they're going to respect you for that. So those are things that they want to see, players that are interested in what their school is doing. Okay? So make sure you understand that. Congratulate them. Take an interest in their program. And this is really important too. let's say you receive an offer, even if it's a school that you really want to go to, don't rush, because there's opportunities that you can maybe get a little bit more money, you can negotiate. Let's say they offer you 50%, right? You can say, well, I really like your school, coach. I would love to go. I need a little bit more help. They may offer more, they may not. And those are, at times, you're going to have to make decisions. So don't be afraid to take your time, see what is it the best interest for you to go. Is there another offer? Maybe you have multiple offers, and those are things to consider. So in terms of deadlines, for soccer players, the national letter of intent is the first week of February. So this is like the big signing day when all the players for like NCAA Division I and they go and sign. So those are things to remember. If you get to go to a level like that, that's when signing day is. You can still sign after that, but that's something to think about and consider that, okay, this is signing day, you may have to deal with that. And it's actually a unique experience. So make sure, if you can get those things done ahead of time. So don't forget as well, there's plenty of other ways to get additional scholarships. You can get grants, but you need to be on the lookout for those. You need to actively pursue them. There's a lot of money out there for students, but you have to take advantage of those resources. So moving into topic 4, how to select a school, right? So we have a few topics here to discuss, right? How is the soccer? What level do they play at? How do they play? Who's the coach? What's the philosophy? Those are things to consider about the school in terms of soccer, right? Is it public or private? Usually public is going to be a little bit cheaper, private will be more expensive, and of course, usually public schools will be a little bit bigger, private will be smaller. How is the social life? Does it fit the needs that you have? Are there a lot of students? Are there little students? What's the ratio? Boys versus girls. Those are things to consider. How are the academics? What GPA do you need to have? Do they have the degree that you want to major in? Do you have friends or family that have gone there and recommend the school? Of course, financially, is it feasible for you and your family? Because if it's not, that could be a burden that you have to deal with later. Again, talking about public or private. Size. Do you want a small school of, say, 2,000 students, or are you looking for a bigger school with, say, 15,000? Those are things to think about. Location. Do you want to be close to home, far away from home? Do you prefer colder climates or warmer climates? Those are things to consider. And again, back to the soccer, level of competition. Does it meet what you're looking for? Are you trying to go Division I? Would you rather go Division III, Division II? Do you want to play a lot? Those are things to consider. And then, of course, your major. So that's, again, tying back into academics. Does it have the major that you want to get into? Now, to be honest, you're probably going to change your mind. I have plenty of friends that started going in, for example, say they wanted to be a business major and they switched to become a doctor or whatever. Those things are going to happen, and it's okay. Don't panic. Just, leave yourself open with options, okay? Now, I highly recommend a school that is the best decision for you. So this is something to consider. Would you go to that school if you did not play soccer? Now, if you wouldn't, it may not be the best fit for you. But that's something to think about and consider. So, let's start talking about topic 5, when and how to talk with college coaches. Okay? So, generally here, right, freshman and sophomore year, and rules change, email and phone calls. Now, they will not be able to return your call for the most part. You may get, if you call them, they can usually answer, but they may not be able to have a long conversation. They may not be able to talk at all. It just depends on the rule, and every division and organization is different with the rules. So I highly recommend looking up the rules, finding out what they are, and see what you can get, what you can do, or what you're allowed to do. Okay? Junior year, phone calls, emails, very important. Constant communication, at least twice a month. You need to be doing that, especially if you're really interested in that school. If you're not doing that, I'm telling you, they're going to go look for other players that are showing that interest, okay? Senior year, again, phone calls, emails. But maybe at this point, if you haven't got your offers yet, you need to ramp it up more. You need to make sure and to show that coach or coaches that you're interested in the program, you're interested in the school. Make sure you're giving them those cookies of, okay, coach, I saw your game, I heard about your game, great job, congratulations. I really think I'm a good fit for your program. Those are things you need to make sure that you're saying to the coaches so they understand that you're actually serious. Make sure as well, if they respond to you or they send you something, call you, try to respond as soon as possible. Now, if you get something at midnight, for example, do not respond until the next day. You don't need to respond at midnight, right? You should be getting your rest, relaxing. I highly recommend that. You need to make sure that you are taking care of yourself and your body. And coaches sometimes have different schedules, right? They have different things going on in their lives, and that's okay. But you don't need to respond to them at midnight. I would recommend doing it the next day at normal hours, okay? If you're interested in the school, you got to contact them. When I really talk about this ASAP, you have to contact them within 1 day. So that would be like a rule of thumb. 1 day, no later. I would try and get back to them with a couple of hours. Now it's difficult, you could be at school, whatever, and they contact you through email and you can't get back. And maybe you got practice, whatever. But get back to them as soon as possible. The 1 day rule is I would definitely not go beyond that. And of course, just remember, and to think about this, consider it, that coaches are very, very busy. So you may send an email, you may, call them. They might not answer right away. They might not even answer at all. That doesn't mean they're not interested, but they could just be that busy. Maybe they're in season and they have a whole bunch of things going on. They got games they got to prepare, training sessions, travel, whatever else is going on, recruiting. They're doing a whole bunch of other things at the same time. So you may not get a response, and that's okay. Just follow up with your constant communication. So you need to make sure as the player that you are responsible and that you communicate with the coaches. They do not want to hear from mom and dad, because guess what? They're not going to be dealing with mom and dad. They're going to be dealing with you, the athlete, at their campus. So you need to be the one taking initiative and being responsible to communicate with them. Okay, let's move into topic 6, scholarships. So this is always a tricky subject. A lot of information to discuss. Scholarships can cover a broad range from 1% to 100%. Now, that just depends on what you're offered. A coach could be like, hey, I can cover 10% of your school tuition. And that's what the offer that you have. That could be 10%, it could be 1%. They might give you that much. It just varies on the amount of scholarships they have and what they believe that you are worth. Okay? Now, academic and athletic scholarships can be combined. But again, every school has a different rule. So if your GPA is not strong enough, and let's say they need a 3.5, or they want a 3.5, they may say, you know what, we can give you one or the other. They can't combine it. And that is a realistic thing, so you have to make sure your grades are strong enough. Okay? Make sure, again, you're looking at other financial assistance, looking for grants, loans, if necessary. There's a bunch of other ways to generate or earn money for scholarship-wise to help reduce your costs later. So definitely consider those things. And to be quite honest, many schools have scholarship and non-scholarship players, and that's the name of the game, because each soccer program is only has so much scholarship funds available. And unfortunately for soccer, you can have anywhere from, say, 21 to 30-something players, 36 players. You may only have 10 guys that get a scholarship. So those are things to consider, because the coach can determine how much and who gets them. So be mindful of those things. Your coach may have already offered all his scholarships and he can't give you anything, but you may really want to go to the school. That's something to consider. Do you still want to go to the school if you don't get money? Those are things to think about. So, moving on to the next topic, 7. What kind of players do coaches want? Now, this is going to seem pretty straightforward, really, but it's somebody who's going to make a difference on the field and in the classroom, right? Somebody who is coachable, who's willing to learn, listen, improve, and can accept criticism. So I'm going to give you a personal story with this one. My first year, I struggled in that transition. And so actually at one point, my coach said I was uncoachable because I didn't want to take in the information that he was stating. I believed he was wrong. Now, in hindsight, right, I learned from that. And I realized that I needed to gain his trust if I was going to be able to play. So when I did things that he didn't want, that took away game time for me. So those are things that you need to be mindful of. Be coachable, right? Now, this is a little tricky, but every coach, every college program has certain positional needs every single year. So What I mean by that is, you may really want to go to whatever program it is. However, they may only need a center back or a goalkeeper or both. And let's say you play striker. But guess what? They just signed a top center forward last fall. So they no longer need a center forward position. So they may not need you. And that's a realistic possibility. Every year, college coaches and their programs have certain needs. And you may not fit that. So you see in the example here, they may need a number 2, number 5, 9, or an experienced player. You might not fit into those categories. Well, guess what? That school will not recruit you. And those are realistic things that could happen. So those are things I want you to be mindful of moving into this, into the recruiting process, okay? Now, bonus topic, you need film. I say game film, but I also mean a highlight reel, right? Now, for field players, they want games. They want to see your highlights in a game. If you can get a full clip of the game and it's good quality, it's clearly identifiable who you are, use it, send it, have a link, put it on YouTube. You need coaches to be able to see you before they actually see you play. So film is a great way. So a lot of coaches will trash introduction emails, so to speak, without these film pieces because they get so many emails a day from from players, sometimes other coaches, about players. So think about that. You need ways to stand out. If you don't have film and they're trashing your email, they're not even considering you. So that's something to be mindful of. So of course, it's going to increase your chances of being recruited just because you have film. But there's of course a lot of extra work they have to do with that. But that's a big piece to it. So another bonus topic, college camps. Okay. Now, this varies for every school and everything, but it's something I wanted to discuss. Okay. So college camps are a huge market for them to make money, make a lot of money. They're usually really expensive. Now, there can be good benefits, but I'm going to give you an example. I'm not going to tell you the school, but I did a $500 3-day camp twice to the same school. So I spent $1,000 for 6 days. Think about all that money. Now, maybe for the first time I did it, good experience, okay? A little expensive, but good experience. I got to see what it's like to stay at a college dorm, get the process, learn from the coach, whatever. I went again thinking that I was going to get recruited. Now, to be honest with you, especially Division I, especially higher end Division I, and Division IIs won't typically recruit from college camps. Not all of them, don't get me wrong, not all of them, but camps are, again, a good way for them to make money. So think about the big schools. Everybody wants to go to the big schools. So when they host a camp, everybody goes. But the big schools are going to be recruiting the best players, right? So they're not going to be having those best players come to their camps. They're going to be going to the showcases and things to watch those players play. Because why would those players pay money to go there when they can have them come watch them at a showcase? Okay, so those are things to be mindful of about college camps. Okay, topic 8, over 18 and or out of high school. Okay, so at this stage your options are fewer, of course. However, you have to start the recruiting process. You can't, if it's something you really want to do, you have to do this. You have to, of course, be playing as much as possible. I would find a league, try and play 11v11, 5v5, play futsal, do something, be playing constantly. At this point, you can't be picky with what you have, the options that you have, I should say. It is so critical to get your foot through the door. And again, make sure you have that highlight video. You create a CV or resume of your soccer status. And don't just do this if you're 18 or out of high school. Do this at any point. Give these to coaches. Give them a CV. Give them a resume. But you can't be picky. I'm telling you, you cannot be picky about your options. Because guess what? At this point, your options are going to be small and slim. So if you really want to play at the college level, you need to be open to various opportunities that you're going to get from smaller schools. And that's kind of the fact. You still have to do all these processes that we've been talking about the whole time, but now it's going to be condensed. Okay? Now, I say this because in Division II soccer where I played, and again, the rules changed, so it could have changed by this point, I played against a 32-year-old in college soccer Division II. So you can be an older player, maybe you just never went to school, whatever the circumstances. You can be 20, 21, older, and still go play college soccer. So that's something to think about and be mindful of, that could be a potential possibility for you. Okay, bonus topic, the truth about the recruiting process. Okay, so this happens a lot. You attend a college showcase event or whatever, and you get an email from a coach you didn't talk to, or maybe you didn't talk to anybody, but they sent you a thing and said, hey, attend our college camp. This does not mean, however, that the school is actually interested in recruiting you. A lot of the schools will get players' emails that attend this event, and they're going to send out a generic email saying, hey, come to my school for this camp. And I see it all the time. People get really excited and go, oh my God, this school really wants me. Well, no, they want you to come to the camp. Guess what? That costs money. So those are things that you have to be mindful of, okay? Just because you get an email that says, hey, come to our camp, doesn't mean the school's recruiting you. It's possible, they could be, but you need to directly have a conversation with the coach. The coach may be like, when you call them, they might be like, who are you? Oh, I was at this tournament. Oh, yeah, I remember you. Yeah, I'm not interested. But then you go to their camp, and you spent $300. Those are things to be mindful of, okay? Now, and this isn't a joke, you really will have to go after schools like it's your job. It sounds silly, but it's like a job. You have to really go after these schools, be in constant conversation, actively pursue them, because it's very, very difficult. And this is a very insane statistic, but it's something I want you to think about. I can't tell you how accurate this is, but this is something that I was told once, that less than 1% of players get recruited by schools. So what that means is, you're a player, the school comes after you. Less than 1% of schools do this, which means you are going to be the one doing the recruiting. You're going to be going after the school. The school won't be coming after you. It's a small selection of players. Now, smaller schools, that might happen more. So like for the school that I went to, I got reached out by the coach and said, hey, we like you, we want to consider you. So those are things to think about, okay? Of course, everyone dreams of playing for the big schools. I had the dream of playing for a big school, going Division I. I chose for myself, it'd be better for me to play more and go Division II. So that's what I ended up doing for myself.